All right, let's get into it. We're going back to 1990s J-pop today, but probably not the kind you're picturing. We're going to dig into a really fascinating album, 303 East 60th Street by Maiko Nakahara. Now, on the surface, it's this super sophisticated, glamorous record all about living it up in New York City. But if you look just a little bit closer, there is a completely different story hiding in plain sight. And right away, we hit the central puzzle that kicks this whole thing off. This album, which just screams New York City, I mean, it's literally named after a New York address, wasn't actually recorded and mixed there. It was made in Miami. So you gotta ask, why? Okay, so part one, a New York album. First things first, let's establish just how deep this album's identity is tied to New York City. We're not talking about a vague concept here. It is baked into the music, the song titles, and the artist's own life at the time. The title itself, it's not some metaphor, it is a real address. Back in 1988, Meiko Nakahara actually moved to New York and lived in a brand new 39-story luxury tower right at this spot on the Upper East Side. The building, which is now called Evans View, was pretty much the entire backdrop for this project. And get this, she gets even more specific. The album actually has a song on it called 34F. And why? Because that's the exact floor she lived on. So you see, this isn't just an album inspired by the city, it's like a musical diary of her life, high above the streets of Manhattan. Musically, this album was a huge change of pace for her. Her earlier stuff was more in that karaoke style, a more traditional kind of Japanese pop. But this record is all smooth, polished, and just refined. It feels less distinctly Japanese and way more international, perfectly capturing that late 80s sophisticated urban vibe. So everything is pointing to New York, right? Well, this brings us to part two, the Miami connection. This is where the story takes a sharp turn south, because when you stop looking at the song titles and you actually read the album credits, the fine print, a massive clue pops up. The heart of this album sound was not crafted in the Big Apple at all. I mean, it just doesn't seem to add up. You've got an artist who's living in New York, writing songs about her life in New York, so why on earth would you fly over 1,000 miles down to Miami to finish the record? The answer, as it turns out, is hidden in the names listed right there in the credits. And if we look at who she was working with in Miami, the plot really starts to thicken. The recording and mixing, that was handled by Eric Schilling at the legendary Criteria Studios. The backing vocals, they feature soul icon Betty Wright and a young, up-and-coming singer named John Cicada. Now, these are not just some random session musicians. They are the absolute key to this entire puzzle. Now for part three, Japan's Gloria Estefan. Let's connect the dots here, because the choice of Miami and this specific crew was no accident. It was a very, very deliberate move to capture a sound that was dominating the global charts at that exact moment. So, take another look at those names on the screen. Eric Schilling, Betty Wright, John Cicada. For anyone who was listening to pop music in the late 80s, does that combination ring any bells? If you had the radio on in 1989, you absolutely know their work. And there it is. This is the exact same team that had just finished working on Gloria Estefan's massive global hit album, Cuts Both Ways. Eric Schilling was the engineer, Betty Wright and John Cicada were key vocal contributors. This was the sound of the Miami sound machine. Meiko Nakahara wasn't just recording in Miami, she was hiring the actual architects of that signature sound. And just like that, the mystery is solved. The reason a New York concept album was made in Miami was to intentionally infuse it with the DNA of one of the world's most popular musical acts. It was a brilliant strategic decision to create a J-pop album with a cutting-edge, international, chart-topping sound. All right, section 4, Sound of the Bubble. Let's zoom out for a second because this story is actually way bigger than just one album. This decision to go and hire an A-list American production team makes perfect sense when you understand the historical moment it was made in. This was the peak of Japan's bubble economy. For anyone who doesn't know, the late 80s in Japan was a time of almost unbelievable economic confidence and optimism. They called it the Iki-Iki, or go-go era. Japanese companies were buying up iconic international assets, and there was this feeling that absolutely anything was possible on the global stage. And that ambition wasn't just in business, it was in culture and in music too. What's really incredible here is the timing. I mean, look at this timeline. It shows just how razor-thin the window was for an album like this to even exist. It came out in March 1990. Just a few months before that, Mitsubishi had bought Rockefeller Center, this huge symbol of Japan's economic power. But by the end of that same year, the bubble was starting to burst, and by early 91, the world felt like a very different, much more serious place. And this specific timing, this is what transforms 303 East 60th Street from just a great pop album into something way more significant. It's basically an unintentional time capsule of a world that was just about to vanish. The original source for our explainer used this fantastic phrase to describe it, and I just love it: a defenselessly glittering atmosphere. It just perfectly captures the sound, doesn't it? It's optimistic, it's luxurious, and it's completely blissfully unaware of the economic chaos that's just around the corner. It's the sound of a party happening moments before the lights go out. And because that era of seemingly limitless optimism ended so abruptly, this very specific sound couldn't really evolve. It was frozen in time. The album became a perfect snapshot of that peak moment of confidence, a shimmering, sophisticated sound that captures the very last days of Japan's go-go era. And all of this makes you think, doesn't it? An album that seemed to be about New York was secretly about Miami, but in the end was a perfect reflection of Tokyo at the absolute peak of its confidence. It just proves that if you dig into the liner notes and you look at the context, you might find that your favorite albums are telling a much deeper story than you ever imagined.